and then you finish and you're like, ah. Okay, it is recording. So not many people joining us live, but we'll but we'll post it on the Facebook page anyway, so that you'll have all this awesome information at your fingertips. Welcome, Catherine. Thank you so much for doing this talk with us. I'm super excited to hear more. Even though I'm not breastfeeding anymore, I guarantee I'm going to listen to everything you're saying, like, why didn't I have this information when I was breastfeeding? So I can't wait to hear everything that you've got to say. Could you just introduce yourself and kind of tell us what you're studying at the moment and kind of like where you are with what you do?
Yeah, okay, so my name is Catherine and I am the owner of the Mother Milk, which is a breastfeeding consultancy business, which is really focused on educating women in pregnancy about breastfeeding, and then also providing one-to-one support, typically when in the first 6 weeks when breastfeeding is really, really tricky. And I just help mums establish breastfeeding, and then I work with mums again if anything pops up throughout their breastfeeding. But I'm really passionate about talking about the importance of the first 6 to 8 weeks, and how they can really make or break a woman's breastfeeding journey, and how it's crucial to have good support, good breastfeeding knowledge in order to give yourself the best start possible. Yeah, so that is a little bit about me. I live on the Central Coast, and I have two little boys. So I also understand the struggles of breastfeeding, and also the things that make it a lot easier as well. And I think one of those things we're going to be talking about today is how to breastfeed in public without fear. I don't know about you, Lou, but did you find, when you had your first or even your second, that it's just like, like just some anxiety about it?
I feel not so much the second because of being prem and pumping for 3 months. And I was so used to just having my boobs out because you just sit around and talk and pumping. So not with Isaac, but definitely Millie. So she was my first. It took about 2 weeks, maybe 3, to get used to breastfeeding in itself. So even the thought of going out and breastfeeding in public was like, oh my God, how do you physically do it? And then once you kind of get used to it, it got a bit easier. But yeah, those first 3 weeks, I was like, how would you ever do this outside? Like, I needed pillows, topless. There's no way I would have been able to discreetly breastfeed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think I'm a bit passionate about giving women skills to be able to feel like they're confident in breastfeeding in public, because what it does is it does a couple of things. It makes you confident to be able, the great thing about breastfeeding is it's portable. So you can do it anywhere. So making that as comfortable and as feasible as possible is really important. Secondly, too, it's really great when other women see you breastfeed, or just people in general. We don't, the issue with breastfeeding in this country, it is slowly changing. The Central Coast is a bit better than areas like Sydney or Melbourne would be, but we often don't see breastfeeding women. And so the flow-on effect is that women, the first time breastfeeding or seeing breastfeeding is with their own baby. So that hasn't been modeled through our westernized society. We don't live in a village type community anymore. And so breastfeeding is very much still hidden behind closed doors. So I'm really passionate about giving women the skills to bring down those walls if they wish, and to, really feel confident. I think the first tricky phase, as you said, those first couple of weeks can be like, oh my goodness, women, number one, we're recovering from birth. We're just learning to breastfeed. Many women will be suffering with some nipple damage. Maybe they're using a nipple shield.
Yeah, so, horrendous.
Women with larger breasts can feel self-conscious. Women with really dark areolas, so it doesn't stigmatize. This often impacts all breastfeeding mothers in a different way. But there's a couple of tools that you can use to, Lucy. There's a couple of tools that you can use to really make yourself feel confident. So the first one that I suggest is getting in contact with other breastfeeding mothers, because everything's always harder when you're doing it by yourself. So if you can get a community around you, and in these times, can you get a Zoom community or a Facebook group community around you, so that when we do get to a place where we're allowed out in public again, that's not an overwhelming experience, that we've got a woman beside us, a woman next to us over here, they're breastfeeding as well. So when you're breastfeeding in a group, and it doesn't matter whether you're at the park with your toddlers and your little babies, whether you're at a soft play center, when you're at a cafe, it doesn't quite matter in what setting. But when I find when women are with a group of other breastfeeding mothers, the anxiety and the fear seems to naturally be less, because you've got that community around you. So I would say that's probably my first point, and my first recommendation is that women find a supportive group of other breastfeeding mothers. Typically, like an organization like the Australian Breastfeeding Association has groups of breastfeeding mothers, and that you can go to those groups and feel confident in breastfeeding. Women in the first couple of weeks, I always say, often it's getting the baby on. That's the scary bit, okay? Getting the breast out and then getting the baby on. If that is like a source of anxiety for you, what you can actually do is get like a muslin cloth, like a really soft, what you would wrap the baby in. And what you can do is you can put that over your shoulder for the first, just getting the baby on. This is in the really early days when you're still figuring out positioning attachment. So that may take a little bit to get right, but you don't feel like you're exposed in that process. And once the baby's on, then you can remove that cloth if you like, and then just comfortably breastfeed. But I feel, when women, often have something, even just a scarf like I've got on today, can just be enough to get the baby on. Okay, now I can just relax. Now I've got that bit sorted. So often the first part of the feed, having something there security-wise can make women feel more confident. Breastfeeding in a carrier. Did you ever breastfeed in a carrier?
I did, but only around the kitchen. So if I had to do stuff, I kind of wiggle down and do it. But that was only with Isaac. I don't think I'd ever dream of trying that with Millie.
Yeah. So often that can be really great too. Put the baby in the carrier if you're on a walk, if you're at a cafe, because what a carrier will do, sometimes I find women are self-conscious about their belly showing. Even if you've had a Caesar, right? Sometimes you can have like a little, what I call a flap or an overlap of your belly, and you can sort of feel a bit self-conscious about it. And what a carrier does is it sort of safeguards that and keeps everything in, and you've got your baby over you. So breastfeeding in the carrier can make you feel more confident doing it in public as well. Clothing choices. Now, this is up to each individual, but I say if you're comfortable in your clothes, you're going to be more comfortable breastfeeding in public. So some women, and I've got a couple of models here, in summer, okay, you want to have something like a soft jersey type dress that's going to be breathable and has got buttons. Anything with buttons is your friend, okay? Because you're not flapping around, you're not having to undo here and undo there, and it's just a couple of buttons and you can put baby on, okay? What's another thing? Layered clothing as well. So you can have a singlet that has a clip down. You can get them from Kmart. There's a lot of Bonds, like a lot of different places have them, which again will cover your stomach if you're self-conscious about that being exposed when you're breastfeeding. Okay. And these are all tips and tricks in really the early days, because once you become confident, it's like riding a bike. You don't even quite think about it. Taking it slow. I think small steps at a time. Don't go out by yourself with a million people around you at your first time breastfeeding in public. Make it somewhere nice. As I said, go out with a group of girlfriends. Go with your mother if you can, you know, go with a walking buddy or a neighbor, someone that's in your corner, so you don't feel by yourself, I think. And take it slow. You know, you don't have to feel confident the first, second, and third time, but it will come. And just being patient with yourself. Another thing I was going to say, a comfortable nursing bra can make a difference. Now, people often say, oh, you know, well, why wouldn't you have a comfortable nursing bra? The amount of women I work with that they've got really uncomfortable nursing bras that don't fit them properly, and then to unclip it and get your breast out to feed your baby is quite a maneuver and quite uncomfortable. So again, clothing, just think about what we're doing. If you are comfortable in your breastfeeding clothes, it doesn't matter what you're wearing, you're going to automatically feel more comfortable breastfeeding in public. And I think too, women fear, I don't know if you think the same way, Lou, but women fear other people's remarks or what they'll say.
Absolutely. Or just even judgment, just looking like, oh my God, is that person looking at me? Or anything.
And,
especially if it's when you're a first-time mum.
First time.
And you're like, because you're like, you're questioning everything. And then you go out in a public place and then you're questioning what are other people thinking about you, which is silly.
It is silly and
well, sorry, not silly, unrealistic.
And I always say to women, the majority of people that are out and about, number one, they're not even noticing. And number two, they're probably thinking in their head, oh, that mum's doing a really great job feeding her baby.
Yep.
And that's the truth. Like,
absolutely,
there's more nice people in the world than there is not. And I think the community is becoming more aware of the benefits of breastfeeding and how important it is, not just for women, but as a society as a whole. And so I think, you know, a lot of people are supportive of breastfeeding. And you know, those sort of outdated comments of, oh, go to the feeding room or whatever, you wouldn't come across that very often. And if you would, just give them my number, I'll sort them out. But
love it.
So just remember that you're doing an amazing job, and that I look at a breastfeeding mother at the shopping center or whatever, and I think, oh, isn't she doing such a great job? And sometimes I even, and you're going to laugh at this, but sometimes I even make a point of going up to them and I say, you're doing such a good job feeding your baby. And then they look up
probably
at me,
make their day.
And they look up at me and they go, oh, thank you.
I was going to cry now.
It's just that encouragement. I also, like, you know, breastfeeding in public, and it doesn't have to be in a public place. In public can mean just be at a family barbecue. What that does is it makes people aware that you're a breastfeeding mother, and makes it known to other young women that this is a normal biological process, a mother feeding her baby. And it also makes it just part of every day. And it's not something that you need to go in a separate room for. You can still sit and have your lunch and have a coffee, and enjoy feeding your baby at the same time. And I think once you get that process down pat, it's much, much easier. But there's a lot of benefits for being comfortable to breastfeed in public. But I'm just trying to think, did I have any other points to share? If you're struggling to breastfeed in public, sometimes the positioning and attachment aren't quite right, if it's quite painful and things like that. So there's also something to check with, that you've got the positioning and attachment right. But know that it takes often a full 6 to 8 weeks to feel confident in breastfeeding.
That's so good to hear, because a lot of the time you feel that you haven't got it. I'll never get it. Like, I can't do it. So it's so good to hear that.
8 weeks. Some
amazing.
Longer, some quicker. But that's a ballpark figure. Women, a lot of women still don't know that it takes a full 6 weeks for your supply to be established.
Wow.
Your supply is not established till your baby is 6 weeks old. And so And you know why I say, why do the majority of Australian mothers abandon breastfeeding, and what are their reasonings and what are the time period? It's in those first 6 to 8 weeks, because that's when breastfeeding is the most tricky. But once you get through that, it can be and should be a lot more of a smooth process for you. But yeah, it's always a thing with breastfeeding. Reach out early, reach out for support early. If you feel like you need a bit of tips and tricks, or position's not quite right, or not quite comfortable feeding in public yet, it's okay. You don't have to be comfortable from the get-go. I think just taking things slow and realizing that it's a process and that you will get there. And there's tools to use. If you don't feel fully comfortable, you can use a swaddle or a wrap to cover yourself if that makes you feel comfortable. That's okay. Breastfeeding in public isn't about, oh, let's just take all our bras off and that sort of situation. No, it's different for every woman. It's different for every woman, and what you feel comfortable in, you know, in your time and place and in your sort of community. Yeah.
That's awesome. And it goes, that's just kind of made me start thinking, it kind of goes the other way as well, isn't it? When you fully cover up and you've got kind of, you know, those aprons that kind of go around the back of your neck, and then you're thinking, well, what are other mums thinking of me because I'm covering up and then they're not? Like, am I being, I don't know, too conservative now? And it's so nice to hear you say you just do whatever works for you.
You just do you. Mothers need to choices that are right for them. And remember, we all come from different backgrounds and upbringings and religions. So, you know, what will work for one mother is not going to work for another. But I think the more breastfeeding awareness we have, the more that women breastfeed in public. You know, we've got some great examples of women feeding in Parliament House. And, you know, who was it? Who was a famous politician that was breastfeeding her baby? I've forgotten now.
Is she Australian or in America? But I think I know who you're on about as well.
You think after 2 coffees this morning I would be but there's, in recent times, and even news presenters, if they've got a baby that needs to be breastfed, you now quite often see that, where 20 years ago you wouldn't, and there'd be quite a bit of outrage about it. But I think the more women feel comfortable, the more women feel that it's accepted, and knowing your rights too. You have a right to breastfeed in public. You're protected by Australian law. So no one can actually say to you to move away, to go to a separate space. You, as an Australian breastfeeding woman, have every right under Australian law. You're protected under that law to breastfeed your baby wherever and however you like. And a lot of cafes are really great now, a lot of daycares and preschools, a lot of doctors' surgeries. They've got I think the ABA, We Are Breastfeeding Friendly sticker, which again makes women feel more comfortable. But I think, just women knowing that you are protected by Australian law. It's not against the law to breastfeed in public.
And so those stickers, Catherine, it's not to say that a place without that sticker means you can't breastfeed there. It just shows people. Yeah, it just shows you can. We're supportive.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of organisations have tried in recent years to be more supportive of breastfeeding mothers. I think there's a real movement to change our breastfeeding statistics, because if you look, you know, the last major study was done 2010, so 11 years ago, and said by the time Australian babies are 3 months of age, only 39% of them are breastfed. Even though at birth 96% of Australian mothers initiate breastfeeding. So it's a very high initiation rate, which is encouraging, which tells us that majority of women want to breastfeed. But in Australia they lack 2 things: education and support in the early days and weeks. Which is part of my work and what I'm pushing towards. But more back to my point of more organizations are realizing that we need to do more to encourage women to breastfeed, to know that it's a safe place, to know that you're protected and supported. So there's, the coast is really great. I see it all the time. There's a lot of cafes, a lot of doctors' surgeries, a lot of organizations that have that breastfeeding friendly sticker. But yeah, wherever, even on the beach and in pools and all that sort of stuff.
I've seen one. I'm in Gosford, so there's the shopping centre in Wyoming, and there's like a takeaway Chinese and kebab place. Even they've got one. It's like your takeaway. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
I
come
think
and breastfeed here too.
there is a movement to protect breastfeeding, because 20 years ago, even 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't like that.
Wow.
And it's astonishing. And it's funny, like I live at Summersby, so I live on acreage, and we have, how many cows do we have at the moment? 9. And so I wouldn't even think twice to see a calf feeding from his mother.
Yeah.
And we are a mammal. We are a mammal. So, and we are designed to feed our babies, and just honoring that process.
And that's what boobs are for.
What boobs are for.
And people forget.
Yeah, and people forget. And I think people forget because they don't see it.
Yeah.
More people see it, and the more it raises awareness. And if your children see it, and if your mum or dad, or people are funny about, I don't want to see my dad me breastfeed, I don't want my dad to see me breastfeeding. But more often than not, males don't care. Like they're just like, whatever, like cool. I always breastfed when I'm still breastfeeding my youngest, but with both my boys, I've always breastfed amongst my family and friends. And so for them, it was quite normal. And I guess I normalized it for them because I saw it all the time.
Yes.
So you sort of do yourself a service as well, but then you serve your community, I guess, in raising awareness about breastfeeding and how it works and the importance of it. And raising awareness doesn't need to be you have a flag and say, I'm breastfeeding my baby right now, come watch me. It's just by doing it casually in your day-to-day activities. Yeah. Because breastfeeding is completely normal, and your baby needs to feed.
Need to make it normal.
Yeah, and just make it normal, and that it's totally okay, and just feel confident. And if you're not feeling confident, give yourself a bit of time. Confidence does come with practice, and I'm sure with strong mums at Gosford, all women don't feel confident doing a certain type of workout the first time they do it.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah,
just having the confidence to get out there. And it's quite busy as well. We're right on the waterfront, so you get people walking past, and it takes time to kind of get used to your body again, and to move it, and to not worry about other people seeing you as well. But then a few weeks in, kind of like breastfeeding, you're like, okay, this is okay, and you kind of learn to go with it. And
I
just
always
getting used to your new body as well.
Getting used to a new body. I always found summer more challenging for some reason. Because you're always in a dress or in shorts or whatever. Winter's quite easy in terms of you can layer up and have a scarf and have a jumper, but I always found summer more challenging, and I didn't want to use a cloth because it was too hot and sweaty. And by the end of it, I just got my boobs out, and no one seemed to care.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's it, when you have the confidence, I think, as well, to step back and look around to see if anyone is actually watching. Does anyone care? They don't.
It's great modeling for your children as well, whether you've got older children yourself, if you've got nieces or nephews. It's great modeling for them. When our children see breastfeeding, again, their generation will be more inclined to protect and promote breastfeeding. And I remember once I was breastfeeding at a family barbecue, but it was my nephew's party, so he had all his little school friends there, and my baby was only about 8 weeks old, and I was feeding him, and this little girl came up to me. She would have only been about 4, and she said, "Are you giving your baby milky?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh, that's so nice." And then she sat by me for the rest of the feed. She just loved watching.
Oh, she's like the future of milk lactation consultant.
You know, that's how children learn. They learn by seeing what we're doing. So yeah, breastfeeding in public is more than just, okay, get out in public and feel confident. It's all about raising the awareness of breastfeeding too, in a subconscious way. You're not actively out there with a sign saying I'm a breastfeeding mother, but doing it in public, wherever space you're in, sets examples for future generations and also younger women or pregnant women that this is completely normal and accepted in our community.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Catherine, just to kind of wrap this up then, what would be your 3 take-homes, or just to kind of wrap up 3 take-homes for mums when thinking of breastfeeding in public?
Okay. 3 take-homes is find yourself a supportive group. Now that can be a Facebook group, that can be a face-to-face group, that can be via Zoom. Find yourself a group of a couple of other breastfeeding mothers to go out in public with. That's my number 1 tip. Number 2 tip is wear comfortable clothing. I think when your clothing is accessible and easy and breathable, it makes breastfeeding in public a lot better and a lot more feasible, really. And my 3rd top tip is be patient. Take time. Don't be too hard on yourself. Reach out for support if you need, because with breastfeeding, it does take time. And once you've got it, it's a lot better. So yeah, just be kind to yourself and know that there is support out there. And if you want some extra reassurance, to seek that support. Yeah.
That was awesome. Catherine, where were you when I was breastfeeding? Oh, I would have loved to have heard this when I was breastfeeding Millie, my first.
Yeah.
It would have been so helpful.
Yeah. And I think it's funny when women, I think about myself and I think, well, I grew up, my mum breastfed all us children. And so my aunties breastfed and so I saw breastfeeding women all the way through. Okay. But knowing that a lot of women don't come from that background. A lot of women come when they only see breastfeeding when they're doing it with their own baby. So the more awareness we can raise and the more support for women, the better. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. And Catherine, if anyone's got any questions or needs some help, how can they get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me over at the Mother Milk on Instagram. I have all my contact details there. I'm really quick at replying to everybody. So yeah, you can contact me over my Instagram page. The handle is the Mother Milk.
Love it. Thank you so much, Catherine. That was amazing. And if anyone's got questions as well, you could pop them in a Facebook comments below this video or get in touch with Catherine on Instagram as well. She does reply quickly. She's very good.
On it. Well, no, it's so funny when women message 4 a.m. in the morning and we're like, yeah, you're up feeding your baby.
Yeah, and you're like, I'll reply now.
Yeah.
At 3 a.m. Alrighty, guys, thank you for listening. And if you caught this later, thank you so much for watching. And I will be back soon with some other video and hopefully something equally as helpful. Thank you, Catherine. That was awesome.
Thank you.
I'll just stop on the record now. Somehow stop. There we go.